Hi, friends. Welcome again to Soaring Through Chaos. And the reason we do this is because we are in the midst of a global pandemic, which has affected each one of us in different ways. Some of us are worried about our health, some are worried about our sustainability, financials, means. And if nothing else, there is that general anxiety about what's going to happen next, how long it's going to be. And there's a lot of divisiveness. There's a lot of finger pointing that keeps going on. Some of us blame our government or other governments, and that's not been very productive. In the midst of it all, I talk to people that have been really mentors or guiding posts for me. And one of them is Himanshu Bhai. Himanshu Dugar is somebody I met when I was visiting a small town in the desert land of Rajasthan, a place called Sardar Sheher. And I had really no expectations because that was my first time in Rajasthan and especially in the desert lands. And in the middle of the desert, there is an amazing oasis. So Himanshu ji, very nice to see you. It's been about 2 years since we met and more than two
Yes,
years. And I've been
thank
there
you very
twice.
much for having me here. Yeah.
And I want to know all about it. How did you start that? Because when you must have started many years ago, even now it's a small, nice little town. It's a taluka town. But when you started, I have no idea what it was like. What inspired you to do the work you've done in Sardar Sheikh?
I am born in Sardar Sheher,
Wow.
and I am in the initial period of studies was in the same institution. I was a
Uh-huh.
student here in the primary school. When I was roughly, I think, about 7 years old, my father, for some reasons, had to shift to Mumbai. And so I moved with him, with my parents, and I studied there. After my education was complete, I did my post graduation. And then I decided that I would like to work in some rural area and not stay in the city. So I moved to a place called Kutch in Gujarat. And I lived there for about 13, 14 years. And I did work there with income generations, with women, with handicrafts there. Worked with, set up multiple enterprises that looks at employment generations and work there. While I was doing that, every time you work, you encounter some amount of success. And my objective was at that time, instead of giving a man a fish, teach him how to fish. And, he will be happy throughout his life. And with that assumption, I did all this work on income generation projects. And, in about 13, 14 years that I was living in the town there and working in the villages, there were a lot of artisan families who I was very friendly with, still continue to be friends with them. And they, from, earning, say, about 4 or 5 thousand rupees a month, they started earning of almost 100,000, 150,000 rupees a month, doing well.
Wow.
They had set up their own enterprises and they were employing other people. So they had set up small workshops and, multiple kind of things. And, I was, visiting them and living with them since the time when they were living in a joint family, and then the families grew and all that. And I suddenly, in one of the families, the elder father, who I was a good friend of mine, he called me. He said, now the sons have grown up and it's very difficult for them to live together. And can you help sort out this matter? I said, I was shocked. I said, here I have been working for the last 14, 15 years with this family, and I've been a member of the family. And what is it that I've given them? All that they have is they have definitely more money. So they're now one car standing outside, and the second brother is on the verge of buying a second car. They have 2 or 3 motorcycles, and they're employing about 30, 40 people across Kutch. And they're doing this fabulous, artisan work, getting lots of awards at the national and the international level. But have I been able to make them happier? This posed a very major question inside me as to the relevance and the applicability and the correctness of the assumptions with which I had started the work. So with that thought, I thought, I need to completely relook at what I'm doing. So I took a sort of a sabbatical from that work, and I went to Amarkantak to a person called Shri A. Nagaraj, who was a great philosopher, and I lived with him for 6 months at his house. There, I had no agenda, nothing, and he just barely we knew each other, didn't have much, but he welcomed me, and he says, "You can come and live with me as long as you want." Uh, and I lived in his house for 6 months, and I studied his philosophy, Madhyas Darshan, that he had written. And while reading that, I realized that it is not materialistic things that make a man happy. And just by doing projects and work to get a person more income does not ensure that the person is happier or better off than earlier. Then the question came about then, so what do I do? So based on his suggestions and his thing, he says, you should work in the field of education. So I said, what? So he says, you were born there and there's an education institution that has been started by your family many years before I was born and where I studied in this place. He says, why don't you go back? And at that time, I just learned that my mother developed cancer. So I decided it's not right for her to live alone. So I decided to move in here and stay with her. And then while I was here, the institution started asking me to help out in certain projects and certain work. So I had no post, nothing, and I was just helping out. So I would just go and volunteer there. Within a year, the institution asked me to take over as the CEO of the organization there. So I worked there for 3 years, worked here, voluntarily for 3 years as a CEO and looked after. After doing that, I again took a step back, and because my mom was also not well, so I decided that I should be looking after her more and more. And I also felt that I needed to do more work on myself. So I continued to live on the campus, but I stepped down. And so 3 years I spent here on the campus, but without getting involved with the work there. And about a year and a half back, I was asked to take over as the chairman of the organization. So since last 1.5, almost 2 years, I've been the chairman of Gandhi Vidya Mandir. Gandhi Vidya Mandir was established in 1950, and it is basically an education institution there, and it's located, as you said, in Sardar Shahar.
And it's beautiful. I mean, I was truly inspired. I went along with the Learning Society's Unconference, and we were almost 1,000 people that came from around the world. Definitely, most of India was represented in Sardar Shahar, and the local people joined us, and it was really inspiring to be there. First time I was there for almost 10 days, and second time I was there for the youth conference. And each time there was this deeper feeling of how much is possible to be done. So is there a recorded history of the place? Is there something we can see and appreciate how it all evolved?
Yes, there is a small film that is there, and we can look at that. The commentary of the film is in Hindi, so I should try and intervene and try and speak a couple of words in English to those audience who are not well versed with Hindi. But just to briefly tell you, this was started by a gentleman called Sri Kanhayalal Dugad, and he had this inspiration after independent India to build the rural areas. So he was inspired and to work in the field of education. Right? So as part of that, he set up a small hut, and he was one of the richest men in the country at that time. So he donated all his personal wealth and set up this institution. He built a small hut here, and he started living here and teaching 3 children. From there, slowly, other people came, and the children grew, and schools started, college started, and today it is housed in about a 1,200-acre campus. It has 5 schools. It has a deemed university. It has Ayurved Medical College. It is a rural development. It is an agriculture research institution. So multiple organizations are working here, and it has thousands of students living on the campus studying here. and catering primarily to rural youth.
जनवरी सन 1948 की बात है। अचानक समाचार मिला, बापू का देहावसान हो गया। पूज्य स्वामी जी ने भारतीय संस्कृति और महात्मा गांधी के विचारों को बच्चों तक पहुंचाने के लिए एक शिक्षण संस्थान प्रारंभ करने का निर्णय लिया। उन्होंने कुछ लोगों से परामर्श किया, जिनमें शरणानंद जी महाराज, आचार्य विनोबा भावे और सरदार पटेल, और निश्चय किया गया कि एक बृहद संस्थान बनाया जाए, और वो इसी जगह बनाया जाए क्योंकि ये बहुत अत्यंत पिछड़ा हुआ रेगिस्तानी इलाका था। 1192 एकड़ जमीन निर्धारित की गई और उस पर कार्य प्रारंभ हुआ। और मैं सौभाग्यशाली हूं कि मैं पूज्य स्वामी जी का ज्येष्ठ पुत्र हूं। उन्होंने सबसे पहले ये कहा था, मानव को मानवता का बोध कराने वाली और मानवता को अपने जीवन में अपनाने वाली शिक्षा देने वाला संस्थान गांधी विद्या मंदिर हो। इस संस्था में वर्तमान में 5 स्कूल चल रहे हैं। इसके अलावा एक आयुर्वेद कॉलेज, एक शिक्षक प्रशिक्षण कॉलेज, एक मानविकी का कॉलेज और एक अभियांत्रिकी का कॉलेज चल रहा है। ये आयुर्वेद के अलावा सारी प्रवृत्ति इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस स्टडीज इन एजुकेशन माननीय विश्वविद्यालय के अंडर में चल रही हैं, जो गांधी विद्या मंदिर का ये खंड है। एक ग्रामोदय विभाग में एक कृषि विज्ञान से केंद्र चल रहा है, और गांव के समग्र विकास, गांव वालों को भी मानवता का ज्ञान देने, उनकी आर्थिक स्थिति सुधारने के लिए, कुरीतियां मिटाने के लिए, नशा मुक्ति के लिए, उनकी स्कूलों में शिक्षा का स्तर सुधारने के लिए वो हर गांव में काम चल रहा है। स्थानीय गायों के नस्ल सुधार के लिए एक नस्ल सुधार केंद्र, और वृद्ध और रुग्ण गायों के लिए एक गौशाला वो चल रही है। एक अनाथ आश्रम भी है, जहां अनाथ बच्चों को चरित्र निर्माण के साथ शिक्षा दी जाती है। छत्तीसगढ़ में एक ऐसा विद्यालय प्रारंभ किया गया है जिसमें बच्चों को सेवा करके शिक्षा दी जाए, शिक्षा का दान हो, और बच्चों की भी फीस न दे करके सेवा करके गुरुजनों से शिक्षा ग्रहण करें। उसके लिए वहां काम प्रारंभ हो गया है। शिक्षक प्रशिक्षण काम चल रहा है, एक स्कूल चल रही है, विश्वविद्यालय बनाने की योजना है। मेरे परिवार की यह परंपरा रही है 200 साल से कि जब भी कोई विपत्ति आई तो सब जगह सहयोग के लिए हमेशा हमारे द्वार खुले रहते थे। यह स्वामी जी ने अपने जीवन भर किया, और उसके बाद हम लोग उसी क्रम में प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि कुछ ऐसा काम होता रहे। कुछ वर्षों पूर्व कच्छ के भूकंप में, तमिलनाडु की सुनामी में, उत्तराखंड, पश्चिमी राजस्थान और श्रीनगर की बाढ़ में यहां की टीम ने जाकर के बहुत सराहनीय कार्य किया है। वर्तमान त्रासदी मानवता पर सबसे बड़ी विपत्ति है, इसलिए संस्था के कार्यकर्ताओं ने तय किया है कि हम अपने भूतकाल की निधि को भी खर्च करके मानवता का संरक्षण करेंगे, बचाएंगे उसको। और विशेषतः इस समय जो कोविड-19 के प्रसार के में उपयोगी मानव में प्रतिरोधक क्षमता विकसित करने के लिए दवाई का क्रम चल रहा है, जिसमें अधिकांश निःशुल्क दिया जा रहा है, और अब जो कीमत से दिया रहा था केवल लागत कीमत पर दिया जा रहा है, वो दवाई सर्व जर हर चूर्ण वो चालू है देना। पूज्य स्वामी जी को उनके गुरुजी ने 2 मार्गदर्शक सिद्धांत दिए थे। एक था कोई और नहीं, कोई गैर नहीं, और दूसरा था कुछ न चाहो काम आ जाओ। जीवन भर उन्होंने उन्हीं पर काम किया। हम लोग यथासंभव प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि उसी की तरफ आगे बढ़ें।
Wow, that was an eye-opener. Could you tell us more about it in English?
This institution was started on 2nd October 1950 by Swamiji Sri Shriram Charanji Maharaj, as was told in the video. And he started with, teaching children. And today it houses in about 1,200 acres. And, it has 5 schools, a deemed university. Deemed university has a technical college, has a teacher education college, a humanities college, an Ayurved medical college that is there. Plus, there is also rural development wing, which has an agriculture research center, a Gaushala that looks as conservation of local breed of Indian cattle, and also providing wholesome milk to the children here. There is organic farming going on this campus. There. Plus, there is also another campus the institution has in Chhattisgarh, where there is a school there and a place called Manav Tirth. So there we are trying to build an education institution where teachers don't teach for remuneration, but teach as a boon to society and with a sense of service and of giving back. So we're trying to create that, and the teacher education program for that, the training program has started out already. Plus the school is also running, where part of the teachers are voluntary, part of the teachers are paid. Slowly, the voluntary teachers will completely take over there. That school has also been running there in Chhattisgarh. So these are the kind of activities that there is an orphanage running on in Sardar Sheher, which houses children who don't have parents, and they, till the age they attain their adulthood, they are taught, they're educated, the staying, food, everything is free. And the biggest emphasis is on inculcating values among those children more than anything else. So that's the thing. The guiding force of this institution is two statements given by Swami Sharananand Ji there. He said, "Kuch na chaho, kaam aa jao." He says, don't desire anything, become useful to all. There, और कोई और नहीं, कोई गैर नहीं. There is no other. Everybody is your own. There. So these are the two guiding sentences, or the philosophical statements, or I don't know, whatever you want to give, the visions documents, whatever you want, of Gandhi Vidya Mandir. And based on this philosophy, we have been working. It's because of that we have been known as an institution to be a place where everybody comes in. Everybody thinks this is my institution. Everybody is very happy coming here all the time. And, people with very divergent and very diverse and opposing viewpoints, opposing, political thoughts, opposing philosophical thoughts. When they come to Gandhi Vidya Mandir, both or all of them think this is our whole institution. So this is the way this institution has been, and this is what we have been doing for so long.
Wow. Himanshu ji, it's such an inspiration, especially because even today, there's this exodus from small villages to the big cities because of the amenities and the perception that education is better, and all the modern, especially the Western things that you get, from Wi-Fi to all the, the cars and all that. And it's really an inspiration to see someone like you going back to the roots with support from, I believe the person, Mr. Nagaraj you mentioned, has actually spawned off a whole happiness project, which now is being embraced in Delhi by the government of Delhi. I actually had the first-hand experience of meeting people who are inspired by Nagaraj in Madhya Pradesh, near Indore. It was in a community in Pavday. So it's really inspiring. What do they call it? I forgot the particular institution.
Madhyastha Darshan.
Manav
Vikas Kendra.
Yeah, it's
MCV.
like the middle way. Manav Vikas, yes. Yeah, MVCK, Manav Vikas Kendra.
Vikas Kendra.
Yeah, amazing work. So having moved back from the big cities, you've actually lived in much bigger places, and coming back to Sardar Sheher, did anybody in your family, like your children, all feel like they were missing out on the city experience? How did you handle the transition, if I may ask?
I was born here, and of course I was very young when I moved to Mumbai, and then Bangalore I stayed for a couple of years. But I always had this thought that the better place to live in is a small village or a town rather than a big city. Although all my education and most of my living was in very big cities with a lot of amenities. So for me, as soon as I finished my education, moving back was never difficult. And that is what I always wanted to do. Okay? In terms of the family and other things, what happens is we ourselves impose our own aspirations, hidden aspirations on our children. We tend to think that the children develop their own aspirations. I think that is not true. So if one is very clear from day one of what one thinks is right and what one aspires for. So my daughter has no problem living here with me, and she's most happy. She's right now studying Ayurveda here, and she's happy. Otherwise, also, once one gets the clarity that physical infrastructure and this the glamour and the glitz of urban living, it's very shallow and it's empty, and this is something that I've never felt attracted to. Yeah? Although I've lived in that life for many years, and I always found it extremely boring and something that didn't interest me. Working at the grassroots, working with people, even though they may be less educated or having less material comforts than others. But I think they're more intelligent, they're more pure-hearted, and their brains are not in multiple pieces. When I meet people from urban areas and educated people, I think their brains have been split into 1,000 pieces. And they're thinking...
Too many distractions.
Too many distractions, they don't know what they want, completely confused. While when I look at a person in rural areas, he may not be as sophisticated in his language. He may be much more of a simpleton, but he's less confused. Whatever he thinks, he's willing to talk of that. You don't have to think he's talking something, what he wants, what he will do. So I find interacting with the grassroots people easier.
That's true. I remember once when I was in Sardar Shahar, the second time around, I was more courageous. So I talked to a lot of people. In fact, many students, including your daughter, joined us at the youth conference, hundreds. And it was a beautiful blending of people from Sardar Shahar, the towns, the villages around, and from around the whole country. And I remember at one point I had learned Kalbelia the first time around, the dance, the Kalyo Kud Pado Mela Me. So I did it in the kitchen when people were cooking, in the backside. So I danced for them, both Kalyo Kud Pade and also Kesariya Balam. And they recorded it and they were so appreciative that I was dancing with them. So the simplicity, the kindness is just amazing. So how about, there are so many challenges that we face as a nation and again, through the times. Has your life changed during COVID-19? Has anything happened with Corona? In the big cities, it's not a fun place to be. What about Sardar Shahar?
See, we started learning about this disease, I think in about January, information started trickling in. And by the time it was March, first week of March, it was very apparent, although by that time nothing had happened in Sardar Shahar, but that this is going to spread everywhere in the world. There is no way that this is going to be restricted, although at that time it was in very selected pockets. So we had a meeting, we had a couple of discussions, people from the medical college, the vice chancellor of the university, the secretary of the institution, all of them, we put our head together and started discussing what is the implications of this. We all then went back home and did whatever homework and study we could do on the disease. Then we came back on this, and we came to a conclusion that this has the chance, at that time we were also not sure, of becoming a major problem for this country and for the region. And so then the next thing is, what is it that we should do? And since Gandhi Vidya Mandir has always had a history of participating in the relief and rehabilitation work of any major pandemic in the country, as much as we can do. We have very few resources. So, but we try and work with a lot of sincerity in relief, as you saw in the video also, in whatever we've done. So we said we must play a role. And then the discussion was what role? So we said we must take on the role of leadership. At that time itself, we started getting a feeling that the world over people are extremely confused. Nobody knows what to do. Now, in a situation like this, more than the physical thing, which is very important to do, giving relief and all that, it is a matter of taking a leadership role. So, all of us, at that time, there was a major fear that the disease will spread and all of us will die. That's just what it was, and all your family will die and everybody. So all of us, core team of people sat and we said, what do we do? And we decided, okay, all of us are going to get COVID. We are going to be infected. And then we said, okay, along with us, my family is going to get COVID. Then what are we going to do? There. So we said, okay, if that's going to happen, it's going to happen, if that's the way. So let's now work with that assumption in mind. Let's move that fear thing. So let us not stop taking any precautions, whatever is necessary. So whatever precautions were necessary, we started taking. And we looked at this 800-year-old formula that was made by the family tradition of Sri A. Nagaraj, whom you mentioned, who was a great Ayurveda Acharya, which was a great immunity booster. And also this medical college of ours has been working on this for the last 7 years on seeing its impact. And we've seen it had great results. And it's very harmless, great immunity booster, and also a curative medicine for a lot of fevers and cold and cough. So we immediately sourced as much raw material as we could find. And we have a registered Ayurvedic pharmacy, which is 70-year-old in the institution. And we started making this medicine. And we converted it into a tea, hot tea beverage. And with whatever utensils and vessels we could find, we started going door to door in the entire town and the villages nearby and giving this to people free of cost. So in about 7 odd days that we did this, we ended up going and meeting personally and giving it to almost 200,000 people. And a team of almost 300 people from the institution did this work. Then, of course, the Indian government imposed the lockdown because in other parts of the country, this had spread. Once that was, it was not possible to go door to door. So, we were worried what to do. So we said, okay, let's prepare this medicine as much as we can. We had also prepared papers, applied for a license for this medicine. And the government overnight, they gave us a license because we had done the 6-7 years of work necessary for it before. So the timing was right. And so this is one thing that we did. Today, we are able to manufacture roughly 6 lakh doses a day. And we've been doing it 600,000 doses a day we make. And it's been distributed all across the country and also to many other parts of the world. We are in a position to augment this further at a very short notice. So this is one of the most successful programs that we've been able to do. There have been plenty of instances where a lot of families, people who were COVID positive came and did not know they were positive, and they were heavily exposed to contamination. But because the people had been taking this medicine before as a preventive medication, they did not develop any symptoms or did not develop COVID positivity there. So we are, of course, working in the process of doing clinical trials for this. And we applied for permission for an ethical agency, ethical committee that will do this. It requires a lot of money. We are short of funds, but we will do it at some point of time. This will happen. So as long as we had money, we did this, we distributed this free of cost. Then we started distributing it at cost price. And this is still going on today. That's one work. Second thing that we suddenly started realizing is that this place we learned had a lot of COVID positive patients. And the government was very worried. The health infrastructure, like in most rural areas, is very abysmal. So again, we put our head together. What do we do? So we said, let's convert our whole campus. The schools were shut, hostels are shut, everything is empty. So I said, why waste this infrastructure there? So, I'm sitting on almost a little over 2 million square feet of construction on my campus that is run and owned by this institution. So large parts of it, overnight, we used all whatever furniture we had, and we converted into a quarantine and a hospital for COVID patients. So the hospital and the quarantine still run today. There have been days when we've had almost 800 people living on this campus in quarantine. The government had problem of doctors. So the doctors from the medical college took over and helped them. They're still doing that. They had problems that they had shortage of sanitation people, paramedical staff. So all the sanitation workers that were useful, that were being employed by my schools and colleges and the campus, overnight we trained them. We conducted workshops for them, and we trained them, and we started using them in the hospital and in the quarantine centers there. Same with the paramedical staff. So we've been doing this, and now we've now have a full-fledged COVID hospital on our campus, where along with the government allopathic treatment, we're also doing Ayurvedic treatment, and the success rate is far superior than any other hospital in the region. And I think in the last 40 odd days, almost 200 patients have got cured, confirmed positive people have got cured and been discharged and are healthy and back home. Nobody who's been admitted here has developed any major problems. After recovery, post-trauma, post-recovery trauma is nil up till now. So the recovery time period has been much less than other places. So a lot of very positive things have happened. And so the entire team of teachers, peons, security men, computer operators, some students, principals, vice chancellors, research professors, scholars, everybody, whoever are possible, have pulled together, taken on the challenge and decided to, kuch na chaho, kaam aa jao. Don't desire anything, just be useful in whatever way you can. So we've been doing all this. We had a student mess. So we've converted into a sort of a free eatery for all the people who needed food because of the lockdown. And people from, so thousands and thousands of people have been fed in that mess there. And so whatever was here, we wanted to be useful to society there. There's a shortage of milk. So this milk from our cow, Gaushala was used there. All the people who were herding cattle because of the lockdown had a problem that they couldn't get access to fodder. So we used our network with the government, got special permission. We imported fodder from Punjab and Haryana, and we provided it at cost or free to villagers. So every possible way, whenever a problem came up, and because we had this huge team of people who were willing to do the service in whatever way possible, we did it. So, we are more busy, we have more work, and, there is a lot of engagement. And because we are so busy and we are doing so much work, there is, I would say, almost absence of fear that you see in other places. I have not come across any major instances of fights or, short-temperedness in our team, because everybody is so busy doing what they want there. Also, because of the work that we've been doing, even in Sardar Sheher, where, because of panic, a lot of people in the country are, very strange instances happen. But in Sardar Sheher, we've noticed that these kind of instances don't take place. Things are very nice, and people are very happy. People are taking care. People are being cautious. Whatever norms that are prescribed, a lot of people are following, and things are going well. And we feel that the number of people in Sardar Sheher who are local and have been infected is very low, thanks to this medicine that everybody here has been drinking for last so many months. Yeah. Majority of the patients who have coming here are people who come from outside and returning back home from bigger cities who are positive. So we've used this as an opportunity to do service, to grow ourselves spiritually there, because when you do service, you grow spiritually, we feel. So for us, it has been a great learning experience, a great opportunity, and almost everybody in the institution has used it. Yeah? I would say 95% people have really mushroomed and grown thanks to this pandemic.
Wow, wow, this is amazing. In fact, 2 days ago when I contacted you, Himanshu bhai, I was thinking of talking about the Gandhi Vidya Mandir, how it happened from the 1950s until now. And I had absolutely no clue until I saw the video clips that something more is happening on COVID. And I'm glad to even hear the story and from you directly and from other people now. And it's such an inspiration because I knew the principles on which you all worked, the simplicity of it, whether it's in the Ayurvedic college or it's in the school itself, and the way the students engaged with us at the youth conference as well as at the unconference. I just wanted to talk to you about that and get this bonus of understanding how a community is not only taking care of itself, but is actually going to the national level and solving real problems. And I mean, I don't even have any further questions, but do you have any message for the nation? How we can all come together and do more things for at the national level, at the international level? What were the lessons learned by you all?
Oh, you should never ask people who are in the field of education for questions like this, because then you have to stop seeing the time. You have to start seeing calendars.
There is absolutely no time limit here because we are on YouTube.
See, we all human beings on earth are connected and we are one. All these boundaries and spaces that or distances that we have in our minds are all created. They are not real. This is not reality. We are one, and that identification of the oneness is essentially true happiness. That is the only way anybody can achieve happiness, is identifying the commonality and the oneness that all of us share. Whenever there is a crisis that comes in, it's a great opportunity to understand this oneness more and more. So doing service without any ulterior motive, without thought of earning anything, without thought of getting fame or becoming popular, for no other reason, just to serve and be useful to society. This elevates people to a higher level. It elevates the whole society to a higher plane. And I think that is something that we should all aspire for during this pandemic. There is a lot of thought process across the world that this is a conspiracy, this is a concocted thing. Maybe it's what they're saying has some substance to it. At the moment, it's very difficult to say either way, yes or no to it. But one thing I do know, that by blaming or thinking of others as conspirators, one can never do service. One has to believe that I want good for me, I want good for all. Same way, the other person also wants good for himself and good for all. Our definition of what is good may be different, and hence all these differences are there. So once we understand that, then this great enmity that we feel, just dissipates. Other thing that I feel that is most important is there is a tendency among people to do a little work and talk more about it, when what is necessary is that whatever you do, one should speak little less. What you present, at least 30, 40, 50% less than what you're doing and whatever you are there. And this is very important because we've seen a lot of people making tall claims in this pandemic, and then this whole thing just collapsing, or people pausing that we have this data and we have this experience in this particular place of the world, and they're doing, and the replicability is low. They don't give adequate time for the things to settle down. They want the fame they want instantly. That's what you get. So it's very important that we work continuously, sincerely, and keep at it. Rather than, so we've been working in Sardar Shahar, and now distributes the material is going across the country. I've had the police force has asked, and the entire Rajasthan police, almost every person has received this medicine. Then in Gujarat, the police department has taken it up. The secretariat or the government of Rajasthan has taken it for their officers. Now, this is something that has come out naturally. It has not come about by me talking over to press or making tall claims. And this is the way I think if all of us works, then people develop faith in one another, and they realize that these people are not having ulterior motives, and then else the fissures that are there will reduce. I think this is very important. A lot of things are collapsing in this pandemic. The religious institutions have had a bad time. The religious leaders, political leaders have had a very bad time in this pandemic. They've had no clue. Poor guys, I don't blame them also. They have no clue what to do by and large. The social leaders also, again, a lot of failures there in a large number of them. Not everybody, I would say. So it's a 50-50 deal, the social leaders. The academicians and they have really faltered, I think, this time. Because people have realized that the strength of teachers and academicians is talking. And they're not able to do. So this whole thing has to convert, that people who are in the field of education also need to do. And they should prove what they're doing, not with only logic and talk, which is desirable and very necessary. But there also should be an ability in the teacher to physically do it and pull it off. That is somewhere, I think, where the education community in this pandemic, a lot of us have been found wanting. So these are areas that, this is not a complaint or anything. These are areas where we all need to work on, no matter which field. The business communities also have been, found wanting in areas that they've played havoc with the environment. They're not taking care of people around them enough. Again, this is not for everybody. So these are areas we all need to collectively and individually improve, work together. And I think we all have the capability of, converting this earth into a heaven and, becoming, spiritual beings, all of us. That's all I have to say.
And honestly, I love the way honesty with which you describe everything and the humility. So many things have broken, and we are well past the finger pointing stage into how we can all collectively learn from each other, learn from our experiences, learn from our mistakes, and proceed in a more meaningful way. One of the things I would like to see happen, I moved away from Mumbai. I also grew up, interestingly, in Mumbai. Suburbs in those days, Dombivli, and now it's become a big part of the city. I moved into Baroda, and my next step will be to go into a much smaller place even, because the urban centers have become so congested and the villages are almost empty. And in this pandemic, if there's one thing that has stood out, is how fast the disease spread in the urban centers, because there's no way to have the social distancing that is needed. Whereas the villages, at least, even without the infrastructure, at least the space is more to spread out. There's more land, there's more stuff. So I hope many more people take the initiatives that you did and your family did and move to smaller places. Not easy, but it's very much doable. And yeah, it's a wonderful thing to talk to you, Mr. Himanshu, and to hear about the stories. And I hope we'll continue. To those who are listening, if you want to learn more, we will provide all the links to the Gandhi Vidya Mandir and the institutions in Sardar Shahar, and anything that inspired Himanshu Dugar and his family. I will also provide my links if you have any questions for me. And if there's more interest in learning more, we can always do another session. So thanks a lot,
Thank you so much.
Himanshu Bhai, and
Okay.
so much,
Yeah.
such a nice way to reconnect after a long time.
I've always a pleasure meeting you, talking to you.
And
Yeah.
please stay in touch.
Bye. Yeah, definitely. Bye-bye.